So, Nick, thanks for being in.
Thank you.
Money Accelerator Level 1. So, quick question. How did it feel when you got the wire and sold your business? How was the feeling?
It was absolutely, it was amazing. And I got to say, the leading up to the sale, the guy who purchased it, his mergers and acquisitions guy, this dude named Terry, he negotiated the deal between the Geek Squad and Best Buy. I went against an entire deal team. And I blew like $27,000 just to get it together on my end.
Lawyers.
They
and so
blew 80 something, and then the company that we ended up with together blew over like $100,000. So it felt really good because it was done. That was a very nerve-wracking, crazy process. But once it was finished, it was definitely like wow, I finally achieved this goal and I finally did it, and it was incredible. I had been dreaming about that point since I was a little kid. Yeah.
So let's talk for a second about, some of the specifics, and then I want to talk about mindset too. But to build a business that you could sell, to change your income, because you've done real estate right before 2008, which crashed. You had done multiple multi-level marketing ideas. None of them made you money. They left you more in debt. Excel went bankrupt.
Yeah.
When you finally there at 28 and you started turning around, what are some things you learned looking back that you talk to people about now? What can we share with somebody watching, just absolutely, and as specific as you can think of?
Yeah, I would say some of the biggest takeaways was really focusing in on having a service that provided tangible value. So basically in that business, I was doing Facebook ads for other people, kind of like an agency.
Yes.
So, and one of the things that I learned is that if I could prove that I can, if you paid, let's say $3,000 a month, and if I could prove that I could help you make at least 10 or 15,000 on that money, including your ad spend, then I was valuable and people would want to keep me around. So the whole thing is that I had something that had tangible value to it. So they would want to continue to keep paying. What I learned was I went from working with all kinds of businesses, chiropractors, insurance agents, realtors, restaurants, car dealerships. What I realized is that is insanely difficult to scale. So I think in the beginning, a lot of times when you're trying to accumulate skills and you're trying to prove your value to your clients, we're doing a lot for everybody. And then what I realized is I said, I'm going to zoom all this in, and I'm only going to work with, basically authors, speakers, and folks that had personal brands. And the reason why I liked that was because I could work with them and I could prove my value. I got recurring revenue. It was, 12-month contract, and they had huge databases. So if I did good work for Frank Kern and Evan Hagen, then I have a $1,000 course. They could cross promote that and share me with others. And the business, this is what we were talking about earlier, that because there was such a need for Facebook marketing and advertising, and no one knew what they were doing, that I get referred so rapidly.
Yeah. So being a first mover is another lesson. You don't necessarily have to be, because you weren't the very first. There was that.
Kind of Mari Smith. Yeah.
Mari Smith was there. So you don't have to be, I always say, you don't have to be the first. You want to be the first third.
Yeah.
That's where the money is. So it's like you divide things up in thirds, the pie, and let's just say, computers. The first third, the very first maybe is Cray or IBM. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs made an incredible amount of money in computers because they were in the first third, even though they weren't first. So you don't have to be first, but Alan Nation used to tell me, Ty, never be the first or the last.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the last Facebook agency out there. So when you learn that, this art of zeroing in, because I think that's, the next lesson that you said. I read an interesting book the other day called The Art of Tidying Up, which has sold 3 million copies. It's big in Japan. And the author talks about how to tidy up your life. Now, she's specifically talking a little more like practical, your office, your house. But the first principle in the very beginning of the book is eliminate. And so what you did, I want you to notice, as you're trying to do bigger things, build success in your life, specifically financially, a lot of people think it's the addition of more stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to add more business lines and another product and another. And what you're saying is you were working with chiropractors and doctors and all this in your service business. You said, nope, I'm going to just work with
company
speakers.
took off when I
Yeah.
eliminated, when I started saying the more I said no, the bigger my in-demand waiting list became.
Yeah.
And my pricing increased, and then it was like, I was getting referred to the, the folks that were putting on big events and the guru space. And I really liked being in that space because I really enjoyed being around smart people who I admired. And if I had bought their course in the past, like I just would reach back out to them like, hey, Mike Koenig's, I loved your course and all that, and I'm now doing Facebook ads. Do you have a team that's running your ads? And can I do a complimentary first month? And I would just get in and prove my value, and then go for the long-term contract.
How many people did you have working? Because let's talk about building a team a little bit around you. You had a small team working?
Very small team.
Yeah, but that's good. For somebody watching this, there's nothing wrong with incremental baby steps,
Yeah, it was
what'd you have?
very small team. So it was me, and I was running everything and doing all the ads. And the business wasn't huge. I mean, the business was only, my own business was only doing like 400 grand in total revenue with everything. But we still were able to sell it. The valuation was very interesting. It wasn't your typical deal.
Well, you sold it. If you're doing 400 grand and you sold it for over 500, you sold it like 1.3 multiple, which is of gross revenue, which is not out. It's a little better than normal, which is good.
And it was almost like they believed in me and that kind of stuff. But it was just, so for me, I had some contractors, so I relied heavily on contractors to get some extra work done. And then also, my first hire was Donna, who still works with me today. And she was my assistant. And what was interesting is, I was doing so many things, and this was a big lesson that I learned, was I was always trying to do it myself, and I had a real hard time giving up control. And so it took me a bit to bring on other people, take on help. But once I had Donna, I started to just identify what are the things that I just don't like to do. And I was so busy that I would give things to her, and when she had questions, about Infusionsoft, which is our content
email system.
Emails and our database, our CRM, and I'd just be like, Donna, you're gonna have to call Infusionsoft. I have questions about PayPal. Like, you have to call PayPal. So I didn't have the time. But what was cool is it built this culture that she was always finding her own answers, and she was purposely trying to not, bring me into the weeds on things. So, I mean, I'd go a month without even talking to her, and so it was just, we kind of built a little culture of being independent and just thinking, having our own accountability, which is really cool. And, outside of contractors, it was just me and Donna. So it was really small.
And then let's talk about using independent contractors. They can be overseas, were they overseas or were they in-house, in the U.S.?
Yeah, they were in the U.S. and basically I had other people that I had basically just met through other events. So one of the biggest things I learned was, investing in myself, buying courses like this and just gaining knowledge.
And going to conferences
to conferences, yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people, conferences where I asked Keith Ferrazzi, he wrote Never Eat Alone, New York Times best-selling book on networking. He's like, conferences. I mean, that's a great way. People are invested. They spent their money there. There's conversation. You can weed them out by talking to them. So you met, and so they'd work from home for you?
Yeah, I mean, so everyone was, virtual, working out of their own houses or what have you. And so basically I just got some contract help from other people I met at social media conferences, and they would help out on campaigns. So I had a couple other folks that I just got too busy to do everything for all the clients. So I would just go out and get the clients, and then I got it to a point where they were doing the actual button pushing on the Facebook ads. It was right around that time where once I started to get it kind of scaled up, my biggest client was just fighting for more of my time.
Right, because you find that one whale.
They were the whale,
what happens. That you make a lot of your money, and you talk about how you wanted to diversify.
Yeah.
Now, for somebody watching, for those of you in the entrepreneur, we're going to go into advanced Facebook marketing a little bit more. But for somebody watching here in the money level, they've got an idea. It could be a product, a service like you had. What's one or two great, kind of fundamental rules of using Facebook to market your idea or business?
So one of the fundamentals on Facebook is you've got to almost unlearn what you've learned in marketing in the past. So, if you have a background, whether it's anything print or, big media like radio or TV, all that stuff you want to unlearn and basically the foundational piece is that it's all about relationships. And so if it's all about relationships, it's like, would you walk into a conference, if we use the conference example, would you walk into that and let's say, I meet Ty for the very first time, and the first thing I say to Ty is, hey, what's up, man?
Right.
You want to buy my stuff?
Right.
Seriously, you want to buy it right now? Like, you know, it's like, it'd be like, how awkward would that be?
It's like a Starbucks. You see a girl that's cute. You do not walk. If you go down on one knee and propose with a ring, she's out of there. You are crazy town.
Oh, totally. So,
but people forget about that with business. They do. I just had a big party here at my house, 500 people. Sometimes people just come up straight to me and go, "Here's my card." And the guy's like, "I'm a caterer. You know, do you need?" And I'm like, "Well, I already had catered dinner." Well, like you said, it would have been better if he'd come up and be like, "Hey, dude, cool party. What's up?" You know. And then and we'll be talking about that more in the persuasion summit. But that's great. So hitting people on Facebook with more of an engagement, like you gave an example.
Oh, totally.
What's the example? You gave that ad. Instead of saying, like my Facebook fan page, you said, what do you think of my new Facebook fan page?
It's just the whole thing on Facebook is it's in why personal brand works so well there. Even if you have a company, personal brand, your photo or the CEO's photo or someone that's a representative of the business, because it's like if we just take ourselves and do like a 10,000 foot view and we look at the environment on Facebook, is people are there to connect with other people. And that's the whole point. You know, they're scrolling through the news feed and they're looking at, you know, baby pictures, they're creeping on their exes, you know, they're scrolling through, they might be poking people here and there, but it's like they're not there like they would be on Google or Amazon to buy something. So if they see your ad, you want it to capture their attention, but you also want it to be friendly. You want to think about it as like, how would you build friendships on Facebook?
Yeah.
Like, how would you create likability on Facebook? So asking a question like, hey, what do you think of my new page? You know, we have a like campaign. I've been teaching this for 5 years, that in the like campaign, so people always say like, you know, if they're a startup, or how do I get to 100,000 likes on Facebook? And some people go the awful route of like buying likes in India and all this crazy stuff.
Which you don't want. You don't want people liking. If India is your target market, then you want likes from India. But if your target market is Los Angeles, then 1 million, you know, Antarctic likes, it's just going to get you penguins, you know. Although is there
no good.
Penguins in Antarctica? I think they're
That's the only place.
Yeah.
That's the only place. You see, you like my geography. I once almost went to the Antarctic. I was in the south of New Zealand. And it said, I was in a town, what was it, Gore, or one of these little towns, and it said, no, Dunedin, I think, and it said, next stop, Antarctica. You could feel the that cold
when
air.
When that door
coming.
was open earlier, I thought for
I know.
a second, I thought I saw a penguin go by.
We're in Beverly Hills, and I got a t-shirt. You guys like my knowledge t-shirt? I'm gonna have this one for sale with a book as the W, for those of you who are a little slower at picking up my hieroglyphics. Thank you.
It's good. It's good branding. I like that. I like the cut too. Is that a subtle V-neck right there? Or no?
No, you know that's a V-neck from the mic pulling it down. That's called a mic neck. Mic neck. I'm just.
You can make your own at home.
We can
Just
make
yank
our
it
own.
real good.
So back to so we got Facebook marketing.
And then real quick on that campaign.
Yeah.
So because it still works today. So you know you want to target to where you're getting the likes. So I think a great example of this is I had a client, Keith, and he was in Hawaii, and he's like, well, how would I use your like campaign for my radio station in Hawaii? And because the like campaign is just click like if you love. And what you're doing is you want to have a high click-through rate, which just means it's incredibly relevant. So when someone sees your ad, it's an impulse. They're like, oh, they don't even think, they just click it, you know? And so he's like, all right, well, how would I use the click like if you love? And what that means would be, you know, click like if you love baseball and you're targeting kids who love baseball.
Like if you love
click like if you love books and you're targeting Barnes and Noble. You know? So he's like, well, how would I do this for me? And I was like, all right, so you have a radio station. Where does it play? And he's like, well, it plays on, you know, the Big Island or whatever. So we zoomed in the geographic targeting on Facebook. And then we said, all right, what's your age demographic? We zoomed that in. You know, it was like, I don't know, 14 to 25 or something like that. And it was like, so what's the #1 musician or artist that is most requested at your station? And he goes, Bruno Mars. I go, perfect. It's as simple as this. Your like campaign is click like if you love Bruno Mars. And he's like, awesome, that's really cool. And then he goes, well, Nick, who would I target? And I go, well, who do you think you target? And
Bruno Mars.
Bruno Mars fans.
Fan page.
Yeah, exactly. So you target Bruno Mars fans. And if you're a Bruno Mars fan and you live in Hawaii
Yes.
and you're seeing this ad, it's like click like if you love Bruno Mars, you're like, boop, done.
Yeah.
So the click-through rate was so high, so you're getting likes for
And then
less than
Facebook,
10 cents.
the algorithm will, and we're going to go more into
Yeah.
this in the entrepreneur level, but that's just a simple thing. Any of you starting, no matter whether you are selling a product, a service, you're an artist, musician, personal trainer, you want to build a Facebook fan page. I would say at the minimum, even if you don't care about Facebook, you want to get 10,000 real people liking your page. You know, you can try to then to get in the hundreds of thousands, then move to the millions, but 10,000 will give you a little street cred. Sometimes I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a business that I was going to buy something, you know, whatever it is, a bartender's for one of my events of my parties here, and it's like 17 likes. I'm like, hell no, I'm not using that company. It's like, they're not smart enough to figure out how to get 100 likes. They're out, even though some of these businesses have been around forever. So, and you see that with models and actors and actresses and cinematographers and directors and producers starting out, whatever you're doing, a lot of people have no quote unquote modern street cred, which is some social proof through your social networks.
Yeah, and what's cool about that is that actually also translates into being a better advertising strategy when your page has more likes, and there's a lot of depth to that. But
and we're going to go into that in a second.
Yeah.
Let's go switch gears here for a second. So you've got the business, you've built a nice streamlined business, people, some contractors, an assistant, you've got a cool life. Let's talk a little bit about the mentality, because we did a little video clip for YouTube where you talked about using The Secret, how you read that book, Rhonda Burns, how you got a tattoo, that by 30 you would have this company that you would sell, and you hit it right before 30, right on track. But let's talk about for somebody watching who feels either they've plateaued or they've lost momentum and they're going backwards. That's how you felt at 28. You had started in your early 20s, and everything you touched, I always say everything you touched, you turn to gold. Everything you were touching was falling apart until this mental change. And what is it, as you look back now, that was that turning point? What do people have to do when things aren't really working right?
I would say that the three biggest things was, the first was I made that decision, you know, and I think everything happens as a decision. Like, you can make a decision to not, you know, be fat anymore. You can make a decision to turn your life around. Like, you can make a decision to stop drinking, which I recently did, which is crazy. But like, it all starts with that decision. So I made the decision that, you know what, I was going to change how I was thinking, and that book brought that decision on. And I think a lot of that too in that decision-making process is like, personal development always starts with awareness. So when I read the book The Secret, what I became aware of is that I didn't realize how much time during the day I was spending thinking about my finances, thinking about how I was going to find a way to pay my bills. Like, there was so much energy that was spent on thinking
on
of
the negative.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of being displaced and thinking on.
As soon as I switched that, and I said, you know what if I just try it? What do I have to lose at this point? I have nothing I can lose. So I just made that shift to say, you know, I'm just going to focus on the positives, and I had to just constantly do affirmations to get there. But it's like that first decision was incredibly helpful to like start making the progress. And then I think, so from that, it's like making the decision, and then the next piece was surrounding myself with the right people. And these are not, you know, blockbuster things, but it's like, that was so important. I mean, putting myself in an environment, and this would be the third thing, was investing in myself and getting the mentorship. But by investing myself and getting in an environment where there were people that all paid the $5,000.
Because you did an Eben Pagan mastermind. He's a guy an internet guy, and so you got in that years ago, and you spent $5,000. So everybody around you at least had figured out a way to find $5,000 and believed enough in themselves. Because a lot of people, you know, it does matter, and people think sometimes this is them being sold. It's not sold. There's Groucho Marx, the great comedian, the Marx Brothers from a century ago. He said he wouldn't be a member of any club that would have him as a member. right? He's like, if he goes to a country club and he says, will you let me in? And they say, sure. Then he goes, I don't want to be there. He wants to go to the country club where he says, can I get in? And they're like, no, you're not smart enough. You're not rich enough. You know, that's the one he wants to sneak into, because by sneaking in there, it's all people on a higher level. So do you want to be part of a group of people that won't buy books, but they will buy Cheetos? I mean, that's like, do you want to be around people? And now, you know, some of my higher level stuff is like $50,000 to $100,000, and people that want to go into that inner circle level, which I don't have open. I haven't had it open for about 6 months or a year. But whenever I open up, people want to go in because they're like, well, if somebody will spend $100,000, then not only are they serious, but they have $100,000, so they must be smart, you know. So there's that certain.
And it changes everything. I mean, the investing yourself and it's like, once you make that investment, it's like I always say, make a decision, then make it right. So it's like, invest in that course or in that conference, and then just make it profitable.
Yeah, make sure you show up.
Yeah, show up and do the work or make it happen. But being around those other contacts, I mean, that elevated how I think, because I didn't, you know, what I love about networking is that there's so many different stages as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And just recently was I threw this little mastermind in San Diego, and we had the founder of MySpace. We had like the guy who created Call of Duty, the video game, and everyone there was so far ahead of where I am.
Yeah.
And that's why I created it. I was like, this is so cool. And what I learned in that one, it was just like everyone there was talking about investing and having the team. Whereas for me, I'm still in like trying to create leverage in my business.
Yeah.
But they're all thinking like that's not even in their awareness. Like they've been there, done that. But it's like when you put yourself in that environment where people are just further ahead than where you are, it raises your awareness level of thinking so fast. So it just cuts years off the process.
Yeah.
So it's like the faster you can invest in yourself, whether it's in a high level inner circle, whether it's in a course like this, it's like, but getting around the other people to help, it's like the tide raises all boats.
Awesome. So to close out this mini talk, then we're going to go into, those of you in the entrepreneur persuasion, we're going to be talking about advanced Facebook marketing and closing deals. But for you to lock this in, here's your homework that I want you to answer below. Question number 1, okay. What is a Facebook-like campaign, based on what we talked about here? What's a question you could ask that would work for the type of people you want to target? Number 2, okay, what do you need to cut? This is a very important principle, is cutting things. So what do you need to cut out of your business goals? Warren Buffett says every year you should let go of one strongly held belief. So what's something strongly held in your business that you're like, I gotta launch this new product, or I have to go to these, what can you cut and streamline? So let's answer those 2 questions. That will close this out, and see you guys next.
Cheers.